Hey, everybody. Welcome to Headliners in the Headlines. I am your guest host, Yaini Ababa, and I am here with the incomparable Greg Proops, Robert Mack, and Tom Sawyer. Everybody say hello.
Hello.
Hello,
Get
everybody.
right into it because this week has been a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we all agree on that.
So, have you guys seen the interview with JD Vance that was on Fox and Friends? I know we all watch that all the time religiously.
No.
Yeah, I try to go to sleep to Fox and Friends because I think an amazing series of lies is really the best way to rock yourself to sleep in this era.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see it, but I can presume what JD Vance said because I think next to Stephen Miller, he has the most punchable face in the universe.
Yes.
Stephen Miller will be number one forever.
Especially if you're a settee.
Hard to unseat him.
Yeah, the
Punchable
devil's.
and clawable. There's something very clawable about Stephen Miller's face.
Yeah, it would actually be. I don't think it would surprise anybody if one day just ripped his own face off and it was just some kind of demon underneath. You know,
Like those guys who melted in Indiana Jones, the Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Always
so
the
JD Vance
Nazis.
was on Fox and Friends on April 3rd, and he was talking about the tariffs. And in support of the tariffs, he said, to make a little more crystal clear, I feel like I need to sound a little douchier when I say this. I'm going to try. We borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. And China is not happy. Their social media is going super hard after him. They reminded him that he is a hillbilly from the Appalachia, so that he's the peasant. And the foreign minister called his comments astonishing and lamentable. Do you guys think he's more of an isolationist than Trump? I know he puts his foot in his mouth every time he opens it, but what do you think, Robert?
Well, I think he hasn't come to his own yet. I think right now he's just a mouthpiece for Trump and hasn't even thought about what isolationism is. He's just the puppet who's going out there, and I don't know if he's even considered any of this stuff. But you're right. Every time he opens his mouth, it's clear that he's not a public speaker and hasn't thought to the end of the sentence before he gets started.
Yeah, my favorite was that they reminded him, they said, you haven't even said thank you, JD. With a backdrop picture of Zelensky in the Oval Office. When he said, have you said thank you? He said, have you even said thank you to these Chinese peasants? They clap back hard.
Zing. That was the guy's name. His name was Zing, who came up with that.
I think JD's really he wants the title of worst VP, and he wants to take it away from Dan Quayle. That's his goal. You have to admire having such a low bar.
I think he's achieved it. I think he's done more to destroy our foreign relations in, 80 days? We're only 80 days in, you guys.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
We have like over 3.5 more years of this.
Yeah, possibly.
Unless
I love
something were to
ascribing
happen.
a belief system and or a position to anybody in the administration. Isolationist doesn't really cover the sort of comprehensive ocean of their lack of any sort of coherent anything. I think he's just generally racist, and I think he's also specifically a terrible, nasty person, which is the two most important qualifications to serve in this group. That you're an awful human being, one, and that two, you're wildly racist. So the idea that he's giving it even thought or whatever. And then there's that other part of me that thinks about the Manchurian Candidate, not the remake, although I loved the remake because I loved Denzel in it. The original one where the Chinese communist leader says we all are on the same stock exchange. So, China can act like they've taken umbrage at something we've done, and yet they remain the most heinous force in the world. So whether or not they're offended is something I'm not particularly concerned about. But I also feel like there might be a lot of play acting going on all the participants' parts here. Also, as Robert said, JD Vance is irrelevant to pretty much everything. I mean, the government, he has no responsibilities. He has less responsibility. Dan Quayle's job was to go, as Vic Henley once told me, he came backstage at Jeff Foxworthy's show and handed out baseball caps and asked him how comedy was going. And I think JD Vance isn't even capable of that level of engagement. Dan Quayle, you could definitely have in your dressing room and you could talk about, sports or something. JD Vance would be like, oh, teams that have round balls, those are interesting too.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's the most hated vice president so far.
Well, Cheney.
Yeah, I think in a different way. The world has a short memory. And I agree with you that he's incredibly racist, which makes it so strange that he's married to minority. And
that's interesting.
Both our presidents, both our vice president and president have immigrant wives, which is, of course, that would be irony. So
yeah. And I guess the wives forgot it too. They have
Mike Pence was pretty much hated at the end. He was pretty much hated by Trump and company.
Yeah.
Starting around, I don't know, January 5th, January 7th, around that time frame, a couple of years ago, he was really hated.
Yeah, we finally got to see a spine. That was nice, though.
Yeah.
And the person that he called was Dan Quayle. And Dan Quayle said to him, do not do it. You're going to go to jail if you do it.
Yeah.
And Dan Quayle was a moron. There's no question of that. But Dan Quayle's wife, Marilyn, was a very intelligent and wealthy lady whose father was an enormous publishing magnate. And that's sort of how a lot of these guys sneak through.
Yeah.
Their bays sneak them through.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, starting with George Washington, without Martha, he's a poor, nothing, crappy, shitty, failure, slave-owning farmer.
Yeah.
And she's the one who freed all of the people that were enslaved on his plantation, not him.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
After he died, she let everybody go. He chased slaves like Robert E. Lee with something close to a fervency.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I'm full of boring ass facts.
No, I mean, I try to tune it out. I mean, I live in Nashville, so every time I turn around, there's a plaque commemorating the Confederacy. They really want the South to rise again. I don't know how they're going to.
You have a governor named Lee.
Sorry.
Isn't the governor still named Lee?
Yeah. Yeah. He's trying to live up to that legacy for sure. It's lovely. Yeah, I don't know about JD Vance. What bothers me the most about JD Vance is that one of his ideological inspirations is Curtis Yarvin.
Oh.
And I think that has a lot to do with it's just a group of tech bros, that are super arrogant and think they know everything when they know nothing, and they have the social skills of a banana slug in a coma. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Curtis Yarvin?
No.
Oh, okay. Curtis Yarvin is this tech bro who thinks that democracy is horrible and that there should be this oligarchy of these oligarchs that rule America and make the decisions for the people of America. And that he has said that people who aren't productive to society should be turned into biofuel, I believe. That was one of his theories. And JD Vance has quoted him many times and said he's inspired by his readings.
And what is this?
Yes, I've read about Mr. Yarvin. Oh, sorry. There's a bloody leaf blower going off next door. I apologize.
Can't hear it.
I can't hear it. We can't hear it. So
good. Thank God. What were you going to say, Robert?
I was going to ask, other than saying this kind of stuff, what does he do that's productive for our society?
Curtis Yarvin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's rich and he's male and he's white. I think that's enough for him.
Yeah. He's repulsively ugly.
I think that was one of Bill Burr's big thing about that he's been going on a tangent about is, it's the nerds. It's all the guys who couldn't get laid in high school that are having a complete and utter meltdown. And that includes Elon, of course. The difference with Elon is he came from South Africa, had rich apartheid loving white millionaire parents. And so he's finally just come around to his inevitability, which is exposing who he is. And I think a lot of these guys belong to the same club. of rich white guys who don't want to see power change in the country. In fact, they want more, which again goes to what I've always been saying. These guys are addicts. They are addicted to power. They're addicted to money. They have a black hole that will never be filled. And that's what always cracked me up about Joe Rogan. Go, why? We can trust Elon. He doesn't need the money. He's got $400 billion. Well, when you have the word billion after any amount, need is not a part of the equation. You don't need any more money when you have $1 billion. You're done.
Yeah.
You can do whatever the fuck you want for the rest of your life. Whatever you want, you can do it and do it 3 or 4 times. So I don't understand the need for anything after that. It's just addicts.
I need more Chanel bags, so I'd be fine with a bit.
I'm down with that.
But I would also need to help other people out with my $1 billion. Because,
of course you would.
Yeah.
Well, that expression, he's so rich he doesn't need anything, goes right along with let's run the government like a business. 2 things that don't make any sense, aren't right, and aren't the truth at all, and yet are repeated constantly.
I've been hearing a lot lately, people talking about billionaires as hoarders and comparing it to the show hoarders, and not using what they hoard, but just having it for the sake of having it. And Yanni, to your point, if you have enough, you should be able to help other people. I mean, I barely get by, but I donate, and if someone's in a worse case than I am, then I try to help out. I don't know why.
Well, imagine how screwed up you have to have as much money as Elon Musk does, and to do something that exposes you constantly, or doing things that expose you constantly, and get the kind of abuse you get daily from newspapers, from people online, from critics, from whoever, from your stockholders who have to be going nuts. If you're a Tesla stockholder, that's getting bombarded. Just the abuse you get all day, every day, no matter, and you can't walk away from it. And to wake up the next day going, let's have some more of that. That alone is crazy, is beyond words to me.
Yeah,
he was bullied, right? He was bullied as a kid.
Well, I don't know what he was as a kid, but I know his father had 2 children with his stepsister. I know that. And acted like he had I saw an interview with his father, and he was like, well, she just came in. And then, and then a few weeks later, she calls me and says she's pregnant. And then it happened again. He acts like it just happened to him. Like he was sitting on a couch or something, I'm sorry, that's JD Vance, but like he was just chilling, and his stepdaughter came in and was like, you're going to get me pregnant twice. I mean,
yeah. Well, his semen is like dandelion flower petals, just floating through the air. Anybody can get pregnant at any time.
Yeah.
You have to wear a protective suit when you're around Elon's dad.
I guess, and then my favorite is that he's like the whole, with the protests this weekend, he talks about how they're all paid actors, and it's evil because he's paying these people all this money while he's trying to buy a Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. So he does, there's a disconnect. So it's like every accusation is a confession with him. He's completely in a bubble world where he does not realize the repercussions of his actions. And I think he has no empathy and no sense of remorse. So he's like, why is everyone being so mean to me? I'm just doing what makes me feel good. But I mean, just this whole thing, and with and now he and Trump are beefing with the tariffs. And actually Trump just announced that he's doing a 90-day pause on the tariffs.
What's funny about that is they had the guy who's in charge of this, the trade department in the government, was at a congressional hearing, and that's how he heard about it from a Democratic congressman. He didn't know that Trump was doing a 90-day pause. He heard about it. At a congressional hearing.
That's so much for the 4-dimensional chess.
Yeah. Why? I mean, why do you guys think he's so hell-bent on the tariffs? I mean, Do you think he's doing it to manipulate the market so that he can enrich himself and his friends? Or do you think it's just like he's a dog with a bone? He's been talking about tariffs since the 80s.
I just think he's a
It's a
moron.
word that he heard, and he hasn't quite grasped it yet because he doesn't have any grasp of anything, and that he's only really motivated by vindictiveness, pettiness, and aggrandizement. So he thought of a word. He thought it made him sound smart. He's going to keep going with it. Obviously, if he'd spent the smallest amount of time studying, he would know what the Holly Smoot Act was and what Herbert Hoover did and what happened in the 19th century, but he doesn't know any of those things. So to answer the first part of your question, yes. The reason why they goofed around on it, spent 2 days on it, and then revoked it today and put the 90-day pause on it was so that all of his friends and greedy pals, crime gang, could get in line to reap the benefits of the market, because they're absolutely tampering with all the financial markets. And if Joe Biden had done it, they would crucify him, literally crucify him on the top of Capitol Hill. And Jake Tapper would have been up there applying the vinegar sponge. But because it's him and the press, so yeah, is it a great big plan that he has? Not particularly. I don't think he has a plan. I think we saw in the first 4 years when the brakes were on a little bit because we had a Congress and some semblance of a court, what he couldn't get away with other than killing 1 million people through complete negligence. And now this time there's no brakes. It's like, the idea that he knows what a tariff is and he knows how they're applied and what they are is absolutely ludicrous. He hasn't the slight any more notion than J.D. Vance has a notion of what copulating with outside of furniture is like.
I mean, but who do you think is really behind this, like this pushing this tariff thing? I know he's been gung-ho for tariffs. I mean, he was on Oprah in the 80s talking about tariffing Japan because, they were his enemy at the time. He's always got to have an enemy. But I don't think he's smart enough to craft this policy and be so gung-ho about this. So who in the administration do you think is the actual brains behind all this chaos?
I don't know, this Navarro who found some random thing on Amazon that told him to apply these tariffs in this way. But I have to say something. Yeah, he's been talking about tariffs for decades, but I think one of the reasons he's doing it now is because he can, and he's eliminated government, so it's just one person at the top, and he is showing that he can do stuff, whether it's good or bad or makes sense or has been researched or not. So to answer one of your earlier questions, I think he's doing it just because he can flex those muscles, and people will kowtow to him because everyone is scared of crossing him in any way.
He likes attention, but he also likes he has like a kind of a break point where he gets too much negative attention, and he starts hearing it from people that are that are saying, "Hey, you're losing the base," which is the thing he only cares about. Because as long as he has that 30%, the crazy 30%, he feels safe. But his numbers apparently this week he became like the quickest president ever to be underwater on everything as approval ratings. It took to Jimmy Carter, who had the record previously, 11 months to be underwater the way Trump's underwater. And it's only going to get worse for him. But which is why I don't think we're going to have 4 years about this. There's going to be a point where even Republicans, whoever want a job, any resemblance of a job in the House or Senate, especially the Senate, they're going to have to turn on him because he's going to become so unpopular, even when the base is going to start peeling off, because these people are getting killed. I mean, they're getting killed. They're going to get killed financially because there's so many people that are going to be taken advantage of this. And if even messing with China at this point, not having any kind of real plan or strategy is going to, when they go to Walmart 2 months from now, it's going to seem like Whole Foods. They're going to get crushed. Did I walk into Whole Foods?
Yeah. I mean, and that brings me to my next point is the protests over the weekend. Like the people are pushing back. You haven't really heard anything from Trump about the protesters. You've heard it from everyone else. But people have definitely been pushing back. Did you guys participate in the protests this weekend?
I did not.
No.
I usually do. I live outside of DC, and I usually do, but I had a show. But the wife went, and she said it looked like it was under the numbers that that the news reported were lower than what she saw. And there has been some talk of, what good does it do? But I think it encourages other people reminds other people that, hey, somebody's screwing up our finances, our 401ks, among other things, and it might not get anything accomplished, but it keeps it in people's mind.
Yeah. Did you go, Greg?
I was driving to a gig I'm in a comedy group, and we were driving all day that day. But I kept tabs on it.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of something, that I said during his first term, which was it got so bad white people got upset. And that's where we're at again. And when it gets so bad that white people are upset is when there might be some change. And so I'm all for the protests. I'm cynical about it because I think white people literally have to have their home set on fire and their dog shot in front of them before they even emotionally react to the smallest thing. And this may not be the most popular sentiment. And it's because white people are intrinsically evil and they're selfish and they don't have any feelings whatsoever outside of their dick and their bank account. And the idea that they vote against their interests and that it's some sort of incredibly unfathomable anomaly that, oh my God, well, how come white people vote against things that would help them? They're not. Their interest is racism, and their interest is hatred and fear. Their interest isn't the wealth of mankind and the good of the human spirit. You should meet my relatives. And so this is how this works. The idea, it's only people in the media and on the coasts that don't understand that literally the rest of the country would vote again for him in a New York second right now. Mm-hmm. They voted for him when 1 million people died, including their grandparents. They voted for them when all of the red state people died of not getting vaccinated. They voted for him when 1 million people got shot. Nothing is going to move them. Now, there's that other group of people, as Tom said, this is the base. There's the other 90 million people that didn't vote. Those are the ones we're talking about moving this way and that way. And that's what the protests can do, which is why they're positive. I didn't mean to harsh everyone's mellow till the end of time, but I just believe that. I spend a lot of time in red states performing for red state crowds and talking to them, and I have relatives in those states. And it's not a matter of voting against your interest. Their interest is hurting other people. That's what their interest is. They don't sit around philosophizing over what the ramifications of things are. They literally, owning the libs is more important than fucking life itself. And so the whole idea that we can get to them and that we need to argue with them on a level playing field and stop calling them stupid and all that, whatever. There is a group of people that are reachable. And those are the people that aren't voting all the time. Biden won. Clinton won twice. Obama won twice. So we know they're out there. We know they exist. America is not an evil place. It's just full of evil people.
That hate women.
That hate women. People of color. I was going to say anyone that's not who they perceive. I mean, it's not just white guys, but it's largely white guys. So I'm going to stay on that.
Over 5 million people came out nationwide to protest. I mean, it's the largest amount of protests nationwide in American history.
Oh, really?
We'll be breaking that record in about 8 months because it's just going to get worse and people are going to come out again. So, and it'll be, when you start seeing people burning their MAGA hats, that's when somebody's going to notice. But the New York Times didn't have anything about it in the front page of their magazine, which I know a lot more people the few people I knew that still subscribe to New York Times unsubscribed. And so it's going to be interesting, the aftermath of all this, because, my feeling is there's going to be a blue, not a wave in the midterms, it's going to be a blue tsunami. and especially in the House. They're predicting right now anywhere from 40 to 60 seats.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because of the Wisconsin and the Florida votes, that there are 60 seats that were won by Republicans that by a 10 to 6 point margin. And all of those are in jeopardy for Republicans. The Senate's a little more tricky, but right now I just read today that Paxton is going to be running against was it Cronin? Cronin the Barbarian. So I think I'm rooting for Paxton because even Texas Republicans that I know of really don't like him.
AG Paxton, you want him to become the next senator of Texas?
No, I'm saying is if he runs, I think there's a chance you can beat him.
For the primary.
Yeah. Well, he's going to run for the primary against Cronin. He's going to run against the city Republican senator.
He's like a textbook ethics violation. I don't know, but with the protests, I was amazed at how the media underreported it.
Yeah.
I would, even on MSNBC, they were saying.
I believe CNN would underreport something like that.
I know. Or OAN, who didn't report it at all. And but MSNBC was saying hundreds of thousands, what did they say? Hundreds of thousands of people showed up nationwide to protest, a protest organized by Democrats against the tariffs. That's how they spun it. Even though there were tons of issues.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like pick your issue. It's a bingo card of issues. And I'm just wondering, why do you guys think that the legacy media is underreporting it? It's almost as if they're complying in advance,
I would say they are, and they don't want to be shut out the way AP got shut out of being able to attend those meetings. Although I heard that is being reversed in theory. But yeah, they don't want the wrath of the giant monster, the orange monster, who can shut them down.
Well, it's the same reason ABC paid $14 or $15 million for that lawsuit against ABC and Stephanopoulos. They're all just complying and they're killing themselves at the same time by their complicity in this whole thing.
The thing is, if you push back, they win. The 5 or 6 people who push back, And
they're also corporations. Remember, this is the thing. I was talking with some young guys actually who are in the tech industry that aren't super rich, and I was playing golf with them, and they were just so livid because it's like they have their portfolios that are going all over the place and they're losing crazy amounts of money, and they don't and they all voted for Harris, so it's not like they're tech bros that are for Trump, but it's just it's a lot of talk out here, and you don't get much political talk on the golf course. Everybody tries to stay away from that because you're playing with somebody for 4 hours, and if that comes out too early, it's going to be a really uncomfortable round of golf. But it's coming out early. Like the last 10 times I've played, people have just been furious, So.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we can count on the media at all. I think they threw in the towel a long time ago. I mean, the fact that they would even support him, no major media outlet called for his resignation when hundreds of thousands of people were dying of COVID and 3,000 people were dying a day. Not one, not the Miami Herald, not the New York Times, not CNN. So that just tells you.
And they called for Biden to step down.
They called for Biden to step down because he had a sore throat and he was hoarse. And CNN had turned down his microphone. And mind you, on the night, 47 was screaming and yelling lies one after the next, and that didn't seem to register at all. I think we're at the Lachlan Murdoch level of empathy with the media. They're literally rooting against democracy, and as Tom said, hastening their own irrelevancy and demise.
Yeah, I don't understand.
There's plenty of us now with other thoughts on our minds than theirs, and I wouldn't be surprised by MSNBC being completely complicit. They're owned by a gigantic corporation, and I was taught in my junior college when we still taught civics. This is the 40s, you mind you, right after World War II, where we taught Jerry a thing or three. Here's one in the eye for you, Mr. Hitler, and off we go. That corporations have two motives: profit and growth. So that's where it stops. There isn't profit growth and helping people, profit growth and information, profit growth and making the world better, profit growth. And that's MSNBC too. And I don't mean to harsh everyone's goddamn mellow, but Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow are part of that fucking giant machine as well. Yeah, they say the truth sometimes, and yeah, they can be very valuable allies and whatnot, but they also have their own goddamn agenda. And I'll be honest, I always thought MSNBC, other than maybe Lawrence O'Donnell, was the broiest goddamn Bernie fest I've ever seen in my fucking life. And they were not particularly Kamala or Biden oriented, or even particularly Obama oriented. I've always found them to be sort of wildly, any white person that raised their head that shouted loud, like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie, they got a complete wet patch. And anyone else that did it, well, I mean, look, they fired Tiffany Cross, they fired Joy Reid, they fired, I'm missing a couple, Melissa Harris Perry. What other black woman has MSNBC fired? I mean,
Yeah, they kept Joe and Mika, who have the worst ratings on the planet.
Yeah.
And I stopped watching them like immediately, and I still haven't come back because it's like it's corporate media. I mean, it's the same, and they have the same logic of any corporation, and that's the thing that drove me mad working for Live Nation was just the amount of carnage you create at the workplace just to save nickels, save nickels, literally nickels. And they take all the things that made things fun away, and all the things that brought joy to the workplace away, and then they go, how come people aren't being as productive as they used to? Because because work is a place of hopelessness.
Yeah, it is. And someone was trying to tell me that, like, if we think about the way things were right before the Great Depression, like how bad labor standards were, and that children were working, like we should be grateful. And I was just like, absolutely not. No, we should not be grateful. We are human beings who deserve to live with dignity and respect, all of us. And this whole notion of capitalism, of us slaving our entire lives away and having no joy in life so that someone else can become a billionaire, it just doesn't gel with me.
And all you need to know is that especially when people rave about or go lose their mind over homelessness in Los Angeles or New York or San Francisco, all you need to tell them is 40% plus of homeless people work. They are working. They are living out of their cars, and they are living out of their mobile campers to go to work because they cannot afford first, last, and a deposit and the rent for that to get into a place. They're living paycheck to paycheck. Any bad thing that happens will completely doom them. And until you realize that nobody in America that is willing to work a 30 to 40 hour week should be on the street, then until you come to the conclusion that is absolutely wrong, there's zero, that number should be zero, because then we have to deal with the other homeless issues, which are drug addiction and mental health. And you're left with the 3% that just like camping, that the Republicans think it's all them,
Yeah.
They want to rave about the fentanyl coming in from Mexico, but when it comes down to it, they have no empathy for the people that are actually addicted to the fentanyl. They just use it to hammer brown people, and then when it comes to actually helping the white people that are addicted, to meth or to fentanyl, they don't give a shit. So
they use it to fearmonger, like Mary Jo Pat, who lives in the suburbs and doesn't encounter any homeless people at all. Here, before I moved back to Nashville, I lived in Brentwood, which is like the Mill Valley of the Nashville area. And there was one homeless person in my apartment complex. There was a text thread that we had to like organize, like, hey, let's all have a potluck by the pool, like that kind of stuff. And they were like, the homeless guy was in front of Fresh Market and I shouldn't be meant to feel unsafe. And I was like, okay, well, he shouldn't be homeless. Like, why are we
Did we invite him
criminalizing
to the barbecue?
like he's schizophrenic? Like, I was like, I ignore him. Like, I grew up in the Haight-Ashbury, so there's that. But also, I ignore him. I talked to him once and he said something crazy and I was like, what? And then he said something else and I just walked away. But here they criminalize homelessness in a totally different way. Like if you are sleeping outside, you will go to jail.
Irony.
It's beyond sit lie. They have
You're sleeping outside. We'll put you in a jail with a bed and feed you 3 times a day.
Yeah, if I was homeless in Nashville, like when our winters, when it was -2 degrees, I sure would be sleeping right in front of that police station outside. Like, take me in. But I mean, they act like people did it to themselves on purpose. Like they became homeless on purpose. And they just, when I talk to people and I tell them I'm from San Francisco here, I just don't understand how all those homeless people can be. And I'm like, they didn't choose to be this way. There's all these contributing factors. And they look surprised when I tell them this contributing factors. And I mean, I was like that for a bit growing up in the Haight. My family had a business in the Haight, and the deadheads, I tell you what, they give homeless people that are really going through it a bad name. So there was a whole phase where I was just like, why are you like this? And then I started talking to people and getting to know their situations. And I realized that I'm a jerk. And, there's that. But I feel like the media holding everything back. That's why alternative media like Midas Touch and Damage Report and Zateo are doing so well, is because they're not, or the Bulwark, which is a conservative one, they're not subservient to like the big corporate guy. They don't have to do what their big corporate owners tell them to do. So Midas Touch it's outranking Fox
Rogan.
News and Ronan and MSNBC. It's getting more viewers than, and I feel like sometimes they're really sensational. It's just like a click. It's just like, look at what Donald did today. Look at what Trump did today. Just like the mainstream media, it's a reactionary thing, but it's what the people want right now. I think that they don't really understand what the people want. I think that people are very surprised by things like, for example, with the protest, with the 5 million, Black people sat it out, including me. I've done the work. I've been phone banking, getting out the vote, putting myself in the streets against police brutality, organizing marches, all the things. A lot of Black people, especially Black women, have done it. And we said, you know what? You go have your march. I'm going to go get a pedicure. And I think a lot of white people, from what I've seen on social media, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, are surprised at the fact that there was a lack of police and a lack of violence. And they're making the connection of police terror against people of color. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I hadn't heard that, but I did want to add one thing before I forget about this new media landscape. And you're talking about how social media, the statistic I heard that scares me is that more kids now get their news from social media than the traditional news outlets. And 80% of the top social media producers that are not news related, your podcast, 80% lean toward the right. And 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds are now going to the internet to get their news. So they are being not groomed, but they're coming up in this world where everything is leaning toward that direction. And there's no way that they're going to go back to traditional news, because they're getting it all through these Joe Rogan podcasts. And I don't know, that was very discouraging to hear that the future is going that direction.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's true to a certain point, but I also think that I think anything can turn, because no matter what somebody's telling you on the TV, if somebody's standing behind you or in front of you and just hitting you in the face with a frying pan every 5 minutes, and the guy on the television is telling you no one's hitting you in the face with a frying pan, that eventually you're going to believe the pain that you're feeling, being hit. So I think that Donald Trump's going to, and hopefully if the Democratic Party ever wakes up, is going to make some serious changes and stop using the norms. That's the thing that I thought there was a law against that. No, it was a norm. We need to just get rid of the norms and have laws that you can't do things, and, getting back to what you were talking about, I think as far as the police president's concerned, they were probably like the media and had no idea this thing was happening, which to me would explain the low police turnout. I don't think, and I also respect Black folks sitting it out, because I think they worked their asses off to try to help get Kamala elected, and then they saw all these dumb white people vote for a criminal, vote for a rapist, vote for a tax cheat, vote for a con man. And then you've got people like Joe Rogan saying, well, Tim Walz lied. He said he was a head coach and he was just a coach, So it's got the other guy's got 30,000 recorded lies while he was in office. And you're upset that for something that actually didn't happen. So, yeah, I think I totally understand why people will sit it out. I kind of feel that way right now. I don't feel like going out and yelling at nothing. I don't feel like it. I did all my work prior to it, and my white people turned out for the criminal. And my attitude is like, you know what? When we're all really feeling it, when we're all really fed up, when the numbers are, when Donald Trump's approval ratings are at 30%, and we're all together on not only getting him out, but getting the assholes out in the Senate and the House, then I'll be there. I'll do all the work I can do to get smart people elected. But the Democrats, I don't trust them. I don't really trust them, and I don't trust white people. I totally agree.
Well, I think
there are a lot of white people who attacked me for not going and said that, everyone needs to pull their weight and do their part, and you should have shown up. And I'm like, I have been doing my part, and every time we show up and do the work, you expect us to do it, and then you vote against our interest and your own interests. So we're done. But also, Black people are boycotting in different ways. We've been boycotting with our dollars. I can't tell you guys how much money I've saved since I stopped shopping at Target. There's currently a boycott going on against Walmart this week. So we've been protesting with our money. We're just not going to go in the streets and put our lives on the line. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, because a lot of people, this is their first time participating. Like, there was this one woman, Megan. Have you guys heard about Megan?
The bouncy castle.
Megan went to her first protest this weekend, and she took to threads. She took to threads, you guys. Let me just read her review of the hands-off protest. Megan, she's a life coach and a mom, and she decided she was going to review the protest. Thoughts from my first protest. My kid was bored. I don't think it would be too hard to arrange a bouncy castle or something. People laughed at my signs, so I made some friends, and that was nice. And IDK, I think there should have been more singing. Overall, 8 out of 10 would do again. Now, people are dragging her across social media for it, dragging her. Some people are saying, why are you being so mean to her? At least she showed up. But a lot of people are like, yo, we've been showing up, and this isn't a street festival. This is a fight for democracy. I mean, what do you guys think about Megan's review?
There weren't enough food trucks. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
What I want to know what her sign was that got ridiculed.
Yeah.
I would love to hear that.
I couldn't figure out what her sign was. I do know she's a life coach. I do know that she has put everything to private. That's how badly she was being dragged across social media. But I don't know. Do you guys think that she should have been attacked for that review, or?
Certainly. There's no amount of white people's obliviousness and obliqueness is the major problem. I mean, coming back to what you said earlier, Black women had every right not to march, and they have every right to be resentful for that bloody matter. Kamala Harris spent 107 days telling you exactly what he was going to do over and over again. Taraji P. Henson told you, everybody told you, Barack Obama told you, Hillary told you, Bill Clinton told you. And Black people elected Barack Obama. Black people tried their very best to elect Hillary Clinton. Black people elected Joe Biden, and Black people did everything they could to elect Kamala Harris, and white people stopped them at every turn. White people not only want their hand held, they want the sign made for them, and they want to be taken on a little cart to where it's going to happen. And then when it's over, they want someone to tell them what happened and why they should understand it and why it's good for them. And so, yes, she has every reason to be dragged. She's got that same kind of obliviousness that, who's the woman in front of the refrigerator, politics girl or whatever she's called?
Yeah.
That kind of privileged bullshit, whole food, fucking oat grain, oat milk, soy latte nonsense that white people bring down, which is my giant argument with liberals and the left. Black people, Jews, and gay people voted overwhelmingly for Kamala. Everyone else can go fuck themselves. And if you can't handle being out on the street all right, Wayne Brady said to me, a friend of mine who I work with, said, maybe now white people will learn how to fight. And then I was on the road during the election week, the day of the election, with Gary Anthony Williams, who's also a friend of mine. And he said, because we were in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee right after the election, the week after, the week of, the day of, and the week after. He said, it's like white people's fucking Super Bowl. Because everywhere we went, they were dancing, partying, drinking, having the best time, completely oblivious. Whereas in New York, LA, the bluer places, there was silence on the street. You may remember in San Francisco, no one even went out to dinner for a fucking week after the election. And in the South, and one of the places I was, it was the biggest party you've ever fucking seen. So yeah, she deserves to be dragged. She needs to be shaken by the collar and woken up. That I get dragged all the time on social media, not like desperately, but because I always say to people, listen to Black women. How were Black women able to discern that Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris were good candidates when all the other white people, oh my God, I was exposed to all this misinformation and I don't know how I made this crappy decision. And oh my God, I feel bad about it now. So you never once ever took it on board that maybe Black women knew what they were talking about and that their mode of survival for the last 450 years in the United States is to navigate the insane labyrinth that is white hatred and pain. So that's what I have to say about it. I mean, I wish it was funnier, but like the bouncy castle thing is just absolutely, you couldn't have written that if you were writing a parody of what white people are like. Yeah. Why would I used to do a joke where I go, you can't go to march with liberals because they'll go, someone's smoking, I'm not going to march today. Or someone's wearing leather or whatever. Whereas I think Republicans march in lockstep. We just hate everybody, kill, kill, kill. And you get a couple of liberals in there and they're like, someone swore.
Yeah, well, I mean, Keith Edwards, do you guys know who Keith Edwards is? He is a commentator. He's a member of the LGBTQAI plus community, and he came to her defense and he got dragged down too. And for me, I put out and people got mad at me and I was like, I said what I fucking said. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that word. But for me, I feel like in this society and the last like 500 years of colonialism, 500 years plus, white people's comfort and feelings have always been at the center of everything. So when they're challenged and people who look like me are like, that's not okay, and this is why, then they can't handle that. So then they're going to attack the person who's making them look at themselves. So I think that's kind of what went on with Megan, because when I did a video where I was like, look at this chick, people were like, how could you do that? At least she showed up. You weren't there. And people started attacking me thinking I was going to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But I was like, I said what I said, shut up. Like, and so I think our society and European society and global society is always the comfort of white people. I'm not saying that like kill whitey or anything. I'm just saying that what it is.
I'll say kill Whitey.
You know, and that's something that needs to be unlearned and changed.
Yep.
So,
And
I mean,
I just don't understand why we're supposed to have endless empathy and sympathy for the travails that white people go through, and that they're having so much trouble navigating this multiverse of social media and misinformation, where you see a group consistently navigate it. Jews, gays, black people, black women in particular. They're able to absorb the same goddamn information. There, I mean, yes, mind you, there's different places in the country. You live in Tennessee. You know that in Tennessee, when you walk into a business, Fox News is on or Newsmax is on. So they're not getting a whole big picture. You could even say things to them, this happened, that happened, and they literally don't know it. On the other hand, it is their responsibility as grown-up people who pay tax in a normal human society to make themselves aware of things and not just glide along like all white people do, watching sports, gambling, taking drugs, drinking, and the 5 things that white people do. Because they really don't do a lot else. They're not out there campaigning to make life better. And I say this as an old, rich white guy. So I know from whence I speak. That we have nothing good planned for the world. Old white guys are not sitting around thinking how they can make things. Joe Biden was. Mind you, there's always an exception.
I have a friend who is a lobbyist for the private prison system. Now, I know that sounds weird that I just said I have a friend who does that.
Lunch must be awesome.
My cousin who lives here, she has a lot of money. Her husband used to play for the Titans, right? Their kids go to private school, and she became friends with one of the moms. So when I moved here, she was like, we're going to go have lunch with this woman. And I was like, oh my God, she's so great. Yeah, we're going to hang out and we're going to be friends. You know, I'm moving to a new city. I want to become friends. And then afterwards, she tells me, yeah, her husband lobbies for the private prison system. And his dad was the guy who basically created this modern day private prison system and then sold it for billions of dollars. And I was like, why are you telling me this now? I like her. It's like, now what am I supposed to do with that? Something happened, and that husband and wife, the husband who lobbies for the private prison system, whose family became billionaires off of the private prison system, he had some sort of revelation with what they're doing with the immigrants that are being sent to El Salvador. And he's having a crisis of conscience. And he kind of wanted to turn to us for it. And we were like, yeah, no, homie, you're going to have to figure that shit out by yourself. You should be glad that we're friends with you through all of this. Like, you know, and it's almost like things happen. And there are certain people in this country that are surprised that there is injustice. And it's the constant surprise that there's injustice is the thing that's weird for me. So.
Well, this week's been a big week of like, oh my God, I can't believe they're picking up people violating their physical rights and shipping them to other countries in violation of every law. And you think, oh, I think women, Black people, American Indians, they're pretty in touch with that feeling over the last 500 years.
Yeah,
it's not like it was different before. It wasn't good before. It didn't get it good. You know, the whole idea that it was better at some time. No, literally I was 4 years old when the Civil Rights Act was passed. So everything before the Civil Rights Act meant you could be dragged into a room and beaten and, you know, so the whole idea that, like you say, the constant surprise is the thing. And the media thrives on that. That's the other thing. They love bringing that up every 2 seconds that, oh my God, can you believe this? And it's like, yeah, I can believe it. When the first boat came over, they had slaves on them.
My father was.
How many of the founding fathers, except John Adams, literally all of them
owned slaves?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, hello, this is a surprise. Manifest destiny, whatever, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the constant. this is, in my opinion, you can tell me what you guys think about this. This society kind of, as we go back to the centering of certain people in society, and they're constantly surprised at injustice. And then there's a certain complex among some white women, in my opinion, that they constantly want to be the victims, and they're always looking for ways to be the victims, like the anti-vaxxers, right? The anti-vaxxers, I don't know why they think that it's okay for them to spread cooties everywhere. Like, we all know kids are just like, I don't want an anti-vax kid near me doing that. And now they've got the king of the anti-vaxxers running our health department, and they are mad at him because he said, it might be a good idea to get the vaccine for the measles because so many people are infected with the measles right now. There's over 600 people, 3 people have died, and they are mad at their brainworm king that he's suggesting that people get vaccinated. He's also suggesting that they use some weird antibiotic and cod liver oil to cure it as an alternative. But he's pushing the vaccine. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? This whole anti-vax.
I just saw that he mentioned taking the vaccine, and it was buried in the middle of a long post on X, on Twitter, whatever. But I think he has to play both sides and has to be at some point be able to concede and say, hey, I did mention it, even if it was a tiny little thing. But he's probably invested in some cod liver oil company at the moment.
It's called clarithromycin. It's an antibiotic. I have no idea what it does. I'm sure it deworms something, not his brain, but that's what he's been pushing. Clarithromycin. I hate these names of these pharmaceuticals. They make me feel stupid. And cod liver oil.
They should give him people names, like call him James or Henry.
Yeah.
Or like that one person you broke up with who you really hate.
Right. Chucky, it kills your disease.
It killed my spirit. Broke my heart. I don't know. I feel like scientifically we're kind of dumbing down, and then they're also doing weird things with science, like this Game of Thrones direwolf thing. Have you guys heard about this?
Yes.
Yes, I heard it was not an actual cloning of them, but they're not reintroducing them as they were 10,000 years ago, and that was just exaggerated, according to some scientific magazine. They just were able to mimic certain traits. That's what I read today.
Well, that's good. There's some uplifting news.
But,
Yeah.
Thanks, Robert.
I need Tom to do Jeff Goldblum. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah.
The arrogance and the face of just because you.
I've been on a Bruce Dern tear though of late.
Bruce Dern.
Yeah, my wife hates it. I'm just going, she'll tell me, could you do the dishes, honey? And I'm like, oh, there's another sad story. Another sad story and a bunch of sad stories. That's what we're going to hear right now. Okay. Yeah, right. Hitting those teeth.
What do you think is the benefit of bringing back, I mean, besides like making like a fantasy of the Game of Thrones bros come true, what is the purpose?
You got me. I think it's just to fill it in a little space on a newspaper. I think another thing, let's see if we can distract people with this.
Oh yeah.
It's I just keep waiting for the bottom to fall out so bad where like places like Disneyland are half full during peak season, and because nobody can even afford a ticket to Disneyland, much less getting there. And that's the thing that drives me crazy about the rich people. They get rich because of consumerism, and they're killing the people. They're killing off the middle class who does the most consumerism. And at some point they're going, how come you don't make as much money as we used to? And I almost did Bob Goldthwait there.
Yeah, well, it sounded like Bob. Yeah.
No, there's no reason to clone a direwolf that I can see. I mean, but the anti-science thing, it, to me, is like hand in hand with being pro-gun, and it's all an anti-women. It's like just a giant of a piece of white supremacy. There's denying science is the stupidest thing that could ever exist, and so of course they do it.
Has anybody seen Adolescence, the series on Netflix? It's
No.
amazing, and it's a lot about the who's that dude from England that did a lot of human trafficking, or black? I think he's an African American dude, or I'm not sure, person of color.
Tate brothers.
The Tate brothers.
Yeah.
So it's about it's about their effect, and and all this like effect on young men through the internet, and the 80%. I think they believe some weird thing where it's like only 20% of guys are the majority of women are interested in, so the 80% don't get nothing. And it's this thing that's being fed to young men who are where we're seeing more and more violent crime being committed by young men all over the world. So it's a very fascinating series. I'd recommend it to anybody to see it. It's really, really well done. English series. Adolescence.
Okay.
And the
documentary?
No, it's a 4-part series that's a drama. Each episode is one continuous shot, so in real time. So it's
just, I'm going to watch that for sure.
It's amazing. It's pretty stunning.
There's an influencer that I follow on TikTok, and I cannot remember his name, but I do remember his hair. I am having a hard time with young men and their haircuts right now. And this is the I'm over 50 in me. And he was talking about how he showed a clip of Andrew Tate talking about how horrible women were and how they were the source of all problems. And he's like, if I hadn't come to this realization and opened my mind, I would have been one of those people who thought that. And he was saying that these Tate brothers who talk about like it's all the woman's fault that you're rejected. That's why you're a virgin. That's why you're alone. That's why you can't connect with a woman. It's because of her. So buy my course for $2,000. That's how he made his money. He convinced a whole group of young men that women were horrible, and that if they spent all this money on his course, they were going to learn how to be alpha males and dominate women and dominate the world and be just like him. And this guy was saying that he, like in these times for young people right now with social media showing them who they should be, and they aren't that person, and they're very confused, and they're constantly being told they're wrong for this and that it's really easy to prey upon young men. And I'm not saying it like they're victims, but I'm just saying it's easy to prey upon them and to be like, and if they've got a little bit of mental illness, like a Nick Fuentes, you know what I mean? Like they're going to connect with the Nick Fuentes. They're going to connect with the Andrew Tate. So I don't know. I'm not a young white man.
Well,
so
it's the anti Led Zeppelin song. It's everybody's fault but mine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just glad I didn't grow up in the age of telephones and whatnot. I was a young guy in San Francisco in the late 70s and early 80s. And we had the Spartacus League and the socialists and San Francisco's a melting pot of insanity and different crazy political viewpoints. And I managed to navigate that without too much trouble. I caught the drift early on that the socialists and the White Panthers and all them were, if you'll pardon the expression, fucking morons, and that they had nothing to offer. And that this whole, we need a third party thing is like, just basically a way whine and stamp your feet and never ever participate in a human adult society again. And I feel like with the young guys, and yeah, of course they're susceptible to it because they're young and they're stupid and they're lonely and their parents are fucking awful. There, I've said it. I thought that my parents were awful, but my parents let me go to school and they never ever told me I shouldn't get vaccinated. Whereas I have no idea what the parents who are in their 40s and 50s are telling these kids. But also, like you say, they've grown up with the phone as their mother. So
Yeah,
it's a
and
way
mentor.
different than me. With us, it was the television, and of course records
I
and
spent
bands and music.
my
That was what
childhood
we
was the arcade at Pier 39 and Golden Gate,
right.
you know, in my sneaker skates. And then I'd show up and my mom's like, "Oh, I thought you were home this whole time." And I'm like, "No, I just got here." And she's like, "Oh, okay. Go make dinner for your brother and make sure he takes a bath." Like that was my, you know, me and my bestie.
Mm-hmm.
But now I see children really being coddled and ignored at the same time, if that makes sense.
Because, like, for instance, you'll go to dinner and you'll see a family there and the kids got headphones on and a computer in front of them or an iPad. And that's not how you conduct your family. Yes, I understand. I so sympathize with parents. You can't spend every goddamn second or, you know, because kids are annoying, let's face it. And as Fran Lebowitz said, children are often sticky and rarely in a position to lend you an interesting sum of money. So I understand how annoying they are. But when I see them park their kid like that through the whole meal, I was invited to be part of the meal and express my opinion during mealtime. However, even much, you know, you got batted down. You cannot just park them in front of the phone and a video game and all that shit for every second of their life. That's not raising them. And that's why the lack of empathy, that's why the distance, I think, in humanity. You know, they took a lot of a polarization and all that nonsense. But a lot of it is, like you say, there's insane standards. Say you were a young person and you saw these great looking people on TikTok or whatever, or Clit Flap or Butt Chack or whatever fucking apps people are on. And then you're supposed to live up to that impossible standard. I was 4 feet tall with glasses, you know, so it was, and my name's Proops. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, you know, children are horrible to one another. They aren't supportive and nice. They pick on the thing that is the weakest part of you and they lay on it until we're all about 15 or 16 and you can fucking defend yourself, basically. And now you've even removed that layer because now if you're 8 or 9 and you're not great looking or you don't have this gear or whatever it is, I feel like it's an astonishing pressure.
Yeah, you're mocked on social media and posted a picture of you, like, you know, walking into a tree or doing something stupid, you know, and then you get ridiculed not only by people at your school, and 95% of those people would never have known about it had prior to having a phone in their hand every day. He would have been forgotten in 2 days at school, and they would move on to the next thing. Now it's like something that can go on for weeks, and not only that, but it can go viral. And you're mocked by everybody in the country and somebody in Australia. You know, so it's remember like when computers first came out and everybody thought everybody's going to get so much smarter because now you can find out stuff right away. You can find out the truth and the stuff right away. And now we're finding out like this, it's a disease almost that's spreading. It's a virus that's making people stupider, not smarter. You know, I watched somebody like Joe Rogan who I know that Joe Rogan that I knew 15 years ago would be mortified if he saw the Joe Rogan today. He would be so embarrassed and ashamed. He would literally punch himself in the face.
Well, he's been turning on Trump though lately. He's been like,
well, he's been doing it in the most you know, safe way. You know, I don't agree with what he's doing right now. I don't know if I want blah, blah, blah. And it's not like the way he would do it 15 years ago where you go, this guy's a dangerous moron. That would be what Joe Rogan would be saying right now. Now he's trying to thread that needle
Do you think he's doing it because he lost the number one spot, or do you think he's really come to that realization?
No, I think he's half like, he's already there. He already took the pill, now he's just trying to save any legacy that he might have, because his show's crashing. It's going from I think it's at 3 now, and it's heading downward.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say not a lot of women listeners.
or liberal listeners or progressive
or book readers.
Yeah.
My followers on social media are women in their 40s and 50s, and that's like the largest growing demographic on social media, and it's changing the way. I mean, I have zero patience. I'm an Aries, so when someone comes for me, like, I clap back hard. And since Trump became president, I've had people talk about how I'm going to be picking their cotton soon.
Oh my.
On social media. And I have an army of like white women in their 50s who will tear them down, but they have more forgiveness than the younger demographic of people on social media. Like, we'll get online and be like, I'm a hot mess. I just ate pancakes and I'm bloated. And they're like, girl, me too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because we come from that Gen X generation where it's okay to kind of be a mess. Do you know what I mean? And we're older and we're tired and we're hormonal. Like, if I ever start an army, it's going to be an army of menopausal women and we will beat everybody down. But like, I was noticing this trend of like the young people they're constantly trying to cancel each other and and everyone else. Some woman tried to cancel Kamau on Substack the other day, and I was like, do not mess with Kamau. That is my friend. I will ruin you. And she shut up. But younger people are still in that cancel mode, and older people are like, I'm going to burp on social media, Like, I'm sorry, Robert, what were you going to say?
I was going to say there's a whole generation that came up on a phone and say they don't have the interpersonal skills. The way they react and act between people is through this thing in a social setting. So they have to look good and they want to make sure that they come out, smelling like roses. And so that makes them brutal sometimes. And that is how an entire generation is raised, with this emotional detachment and just being vicious online. It's horrible.
Yeah, I actually yelled at my niece once, who is now 21, because I sent her into a Starbucks. We were on a road trip to order something, and she freaked out and said, I can't do it. Can I just do it through the app? And I was like, get your butt in there and order it in front of that person. And she was terrified of talking to a person to order a cup of coffee. And she started to pull out the app. She's like, I'll pay for it. I said, you absolutely will not. You will take my credit card and you will go in there and do it. And she started crying.
Yeah, that's the kind of disassociation. I mean, my wife and I talk about it all the time. People take their Ubers and their Lyfts and whatnot, and they don't speak to the driver. The driver is some sort of entity. This whole Postmates thing where people are just supposed to deliver. The guy across the street from me here makes his Postmate guy hand the food over his door. He doesn't open the door to him. So, you're supposed to, when you go to Europe, it's quite different, or even in the South, where people do engage with each other. If you don't say, hi, how are you today? What's going on? Honey, darling, as Warren Thomas used to say, fructose, sucrose, Caro, corn syrup, maple syrup, you're rude. But in California, people say things like, and I understand why someone would want to ride in a Waymo. I understand why a person who's not white would want to ride in one, or a woman, because then you don't have to deal with the fucking male driver bullshit. But I also don't understand not ever wanting to interact with anyone. For me, the whole part of it is the connection. And something Robert just said about, the way young people are. We went to live shows all the time when I was a teenager. We went to concerts, comedy show, play, whatever, blah. And that's not gone. And I find that as a performer, the part that's more important than anything else is, of course, the connection with the audience. So when all these people come to see a thing, your job is to be funny and get up there and do your thing. If you're a stand-up comic, you can be funny in a lot of different ways. I'm in an improv group, so we don't exactly have time to stand around and do satire because we're busy falling on our ass. But people still crave that connection. It's not gone. I know people rue this all the time with how alienated everyone is, but really people do want that connection. They want to be there live. They want to laugh. They want to feel in the moment. And the moment doesn't have to be memorialized. Every second of your life is not that important that you need to take a picture of it or video it or put it on butt flap or kip snack or whatever it is. You really do need to just live your life extemporaneously a lot of the time. And the good part, I think, about the backlash toward the Muskinization of the world is that people have gone back to making their own shoes, making their own food, artisanal this. The one giantest thing I've seen different in the United States over the last 30 years is, aside from watching cities like Nashville and Raleigh go from little tiny backwaters to enormous corporate, pleasure downs, which is just creepy, is that at the same time, there's better food everywhere. There's people everywhere. The idea of gender, as much as they keep trying to push the trans thing on us, that genie's out of the bottle. There's a drag show in the smallest town you can think of. You know what I mean? Like, they can't make it all go back. And it's all part of being connected.
Yeah, I totally agree. We are out of time, you guys, but I really appreciate you. So everyone, tell me what you got going on. Robert, what you got going on?
I've got some shows in the DC area this weekend and next weekend, and all of my stuff is on my website, robertmac.com.
Cool. Greg?
I'm on the road again next week with Who's Live Anyway. We're all over the Midwest, Detroit, Cleveland, and then up to Pennsylvania, whatnot. And then after that, we're going to do all the East Coast. It's me, Ryan Stiles, Jeff Davis, Joel Murray, and Laura Hall. This week, I think we're going to have with us Chip Eston and Dave Foley. Last week, we had Tim Meadows with us, Gary Anthony Williams sometimes. So I'm on the road with that group. And then I have an album out called Purple Shasta Raccoon that I made in San Francisco last year that I improvised. And that's on gregproops.com as well. And then my wife and I do 2 podcasts, the Greg Proops Film Club. We're going to show Pillow Talk on the 30th. That's a great movie, Tom. And by the way, we were going to show something serious like Missing, with Jack Lemmon. It's so to the moment of right now. And the Cinematheque kind of has a little say in what it is by the virtue of what films they can get. And the people reacting to Pillow Talk online are like, oh my God, I love that movie. It's just a silly rom-com from the 50s with Rock Hudson and Doris Day. And it's really funny. It's nothing but 50s dick jokes. And it's really good and very sexy, very sexy. And everybody's queer in the cast, pretending they're straight, which makes it even better. We do the film club, and then I have the Greg Smartest Man in the World that Jennifer and I do from the crib here. It's all at gregproops.com.
Fun. And Tom, what you got going on?
Greg, we have a film club here at Mill Valley, and we got When Eagles Dare coming up.
Oh, yeah. Richard Burton,
Clint Eastwood. I love that movie.
I'd like someone to explain to me what the hell's going on.
Yeah, well, that's that. Clint Eastwood went through this period where he was the star, but he was also kind of like the second banana all the time. He's just a guy that shoots everybody, and then the other guy tells him what to do. But other than that, I'm going to have my usual gig, which is going to Sycamore Park in Mill Valley and yelling at a non-indigenous tree. So you can always go to TomSawyerVoices.com to see my get the link to the documentary about myself and Cobb's Comedy Club, my old stomping ground that I booked for 30 years. So that's a good way to do it. And all the fun pictures you'll see on TomSawyerVoices.com. There we go.
Well, I'm going to be here on Copeland's Corner Network creating content for this YouTube channel. And I just launched my Substack. So if anyone wants to find Yain Yababa on Substack, I'll be talking about things that make white women really uncomfortable. And,
like the truth.
That's why I'm here. And so thank you so much, you guys, for being part of the show. Robert Mack, Greg Proops, Tom Sawyer. I'm Yain Yababa for Headlines with Headliners, and this is Copeland's Corner Network. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and tell your friends.